And welcome back. Well, anxiety can manifest in many ways, and for some people that comes in the form of a panic attack.
Joining us now is Anne Sullivan. She battled a panic disorder for 13 years, but now she has overcome her fears to become an international speaker, blogger, and author. She wrote this book. It's called Unsatisfied: Finding Contentment in Your Discontented World. And she joins us now again. It's so good
Thanks
to
for
see
being
you.
back.
It is fun to be back. Thank you.
It was so fun to have you the last time you were here, and I was like, there's so many things that we didn't have
Couldn't
time
get
to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it.
I love it. It's great.
Thanks so
It's
much.
great.
So I shared with you, we kind of talked mostly via email at first, that I had an anxiety disorder and frequent panic attacks. It's really debilitating. And I think especially if you're someone who, you know, is in the public eye, or I think about so many people who have public jobs. I mean, if you're a teacher or you're a minister or you're a salesperson, you're always in front of people and presenting. And I think it's something that can really make you feel like your life is like stopped.
Absolutely. And even if you're not in the public eye, how about just getting up and going to work every day and having to be a part of, you know, any kind of meetings that you're having in the corporate level? It's very debilitating. And it's very terrifying because it's such a mystery. You know, you're wondering what brought this on. And when it hits you, you're in this great fear of when the next one might come. And that's really that fear of the next one is usually where you move from just a few panic attacks to a panic disorder.
So kind of break it down. What causes a panic attack? How does it feel? How can you, I guess, really explain what a panic attack is to someone?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain exactly how it is unless you've had one, because it's more than just the feeling of being anxious or fearful over many things. It's a huge, huge feeling of dread. It's very acute. It comes on suddenly. It affects your breathing, your pulse. You become dizzy often, shaky. I heard someone describe it the other day as being trapped in a fire and not being able to get out. That kind of fear. And that is bad enough.
Yeah.
When that finally subsides and you're able to kind of get your wits about you again, that's when the fear really begins, because you're like, okay, I'm not being chased by someone and I'm not in a fire. So where did this come from? It came from nowhere. And then you begin to contemplate the more fearful thought, which is, am I losing my mind, kind of thing.
Right.
I think people always wonder, how do I make them go away?
Yeah. Well, I think there are a lot of different ways that you can treat panic attacks and panic disorder. I think I think you need to kind of start with where they're coming from. I think you need to figure out where their source is, because then you'll know how to treat them. Because it can be anything from I'm a huge believer in starting with a physical with your doctor if you're being assaulted with panic attacks, and find a really good physician who will work with you.
Because it could be an underlying disorder or it could be chemical.
Absolutely. You know, there are basically two kinds of causes, the external and the internal. The external would be the pressures of life, stress, trauma. Lots of things can trigger things we've been up against. 9/11, the date, you know, things we hear, smell, see. All the things that have been put upon us, those are the external things we've ingested, medication, drugs.
Yeah.
But there's a whole internal thing that is just genetic. There is nothing happened. As I said last time, I looked and looked. I was on a witch hunt. What happened in my childhood that would cause these? And I couldn't find anything. So the internal things are the genetics, the brain function, hormones, thyroid, glycemia.
What about treatments? Because I think about you, you're educated, you have a lot of resources and probably a lot of support in your life. Why did you struggle for 13 years? And I asked myself the same question, because it was well over 10 years. Why do we struggle so long we can't find an answer?
Yeah, this is why I'm so glad we got together, because, you know, there's such a stigma attached to panic disorder. It seems like such a weakness. And yet, would you call someone weak if they were born with legs that didn't work? Or, you know, if they have diabetes and needed cancer, if they needed insulin? The brain is an organ. So, you know, you find yourself not getting treatment sooner. And that's a real mistake, which is really what my calling is right now. I think the next book is just going to be on the anxiety and how to deal with that in a confidential way. But you know, look what happens when you do get treatment, you know, and working with a doctor, cognitive therapy, learning to think about things differently. But for me, medication was an important part. And I think as a culture, we're probably over-medicated, but careful work with a doctor and getting the right kind of meds. I think, yeah, we're over-medicated as a culture, but I think a case can be made for it being just as reckless to not take medication as it is to abuse medication.
Right. There are times when it's needed to help you balance out and figure things out. So if it's left untreated quickly, what can happen? Because a lot of people say, I'm just going to live with it. I'm just going to, this is fine. I can deal with it. But if left untreated, it can lead to some serious things.
Yeah, and I will say that for me, I could have functioned, but when I was finally treated with medication, I was really able to reach my potential. And so, what do you want out of your life?
Yeah.
Are you happy with that? But it can be much more dangerous than that. The self-medicating that goes on because people don't know what the problem is, and you end up with lots of addictions, and it moves into depression. And it's National Suicide Prevention Week. I mean, you know, these things are very real. 1 in 5 Americans deals with some mental disorder. I think we need to get rid of that stigma of mental illness, come up with new terms or something, because it's just, you know, getting healthy.
Yeah,
I love
think
your
people are
message.
working hard to do that. So it's good that you're on board with that as well. You can send this clip to someone you love so they can learn more. TheMorningBlend.com is where this will be up later this afternoon. You can learn more there.
Come back in, because we got a lot of stuff we haven't tackled
So many
yet.
things.
Yeah, I love it.
Love it.
Thanks
I
for
love
being
it.
here.
Thanks for your
Oh,
time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's wonderful.